Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us once again on another Coffee Roasters Warm Up Sessions podcast. I totally, for some reason, just blinked that. I was like, what is this called? This is the Mirror Coffee Roasters podcast or the Coffee Roasters Warm Up Sessions. Little backstory to that. Honestly, from the beginning, a lot of our coffee roasting production days were just simply made up of us warming up the roaster. And for all of you coffee roasters know out there, warming up the roaster isn't like you turn on the switch, throw the beans in there, and you're good to go. Most of the time, it's like a prolonged experience. You got to warm up the machine. It's like an hour and a half, or depending on your warm up process, which is also very important. Maybe we should do like a full on podcast about that. But yeah, so that that time of warming up the machine, we would just talk about whether that's life, whether that's coffee news, roasting, new coffees we've tried, things we've heard in the industry, what's going on in Bellingham and coffee. And when it came to starting a podcast, because we're like, why not start a podcast? It was like, well, why don't we just call them the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions, which is like the coffee roaster warming up. These are the sessions, bringing you guys into
where the
this
conversation happened.
Exactly.
Yep.
Wonderful. And of course, it was always done with a batch brew.
I mean, yeah, if we were like making food or in like the food industry, probably call it like an oven warm up session, but you know, same but different.
That's right. Sheesh. We got a little what's this in the carafe?
Nice. This is the El Virgil, Elias, and I almost said Elias and Shady Bader. That's what it is. Yeah. From Colombia, Tolima.
Yep.
I'm seeing more Tolima coffees rather than the classic Nariño. I don't know if that's like recently changed or it went from, at least for me, I started noticing a lot of Nariño coffees in the beginning, super popular. And then what's with the C? C-A-C-A-U.
Cauca or Cauca?
Cauca, yeah. Colombia. And then now I'm seeing a lot of Tolima coffees. But maybe just because I think we're just drinking different roasters now than I used to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of makes sense, you know. A lot of these coffees are like a lot of folks who have El Virgil, they're buying coffee from them quite like regularly. So it's not like it's new. It just, I happen to notice more of these coffees.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of coffee is like also like an echo chamber, or like it's that confirmation bias when you're like, oh man, I want to buy this car. Exactly. And then you're like you're like, man, nobody has it. It's like this new, like hip, it's different, you know, like, and then you get it and you're like, oh, there's like hundreds of them on the road. Right. Like, how have I not noticed this? I feel like that's the case with a lot of coffee stuff. It's just like, with processing, producers,
brewers.
Like yeah, brewers.
Like
I mean,
everybody was dripping on, or dripping. Everybody was brewing on the origami for like a long time. Like still popular.
I feel like
but it used to be like every single post.
Yeah, I felt like nobody was bringing on anything else but an origami. I felt left out. You guys make me feel left out. I was like still vibing with my V60 out here, the ceramic one.
I think I know what you were gonna say earlier about. Did you recently see who's selling the Tricolate?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. Now the Tricolate's popping off, and that's everywhere. That's all I hear about. That's all I see. So, yeah, it's just reckless, right? I actually, after seeing that post from that roasting company, I was like, maybe I should get one. Oh my God. All this like confirmation bias from everybody. Everywhere. I'm just like, I'm sick of it. But anyways, this is a anaerobic natural processed coffee. We literally just dropped it about 7 days ago from this podcast. So it was like the first day of January, literally January 1st, we dropped this new coffee. It's unlike anything we've dropped before. It's just a wild one. Yeah. The farm is very infamous for what they do. And working with some really spectacular roasters. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. But guess what? Also, I think today we're dropping.
Today isn't Saturday.
Today isn't Saturday. I always don't know because I'm like, wait, I have to talk about it as if it's today. But the podcast we're recording like days before. But
day of the podcast release.
Yeah, the day of the podcast release. I believe it's January 8th, the Saturday morning. There should be a new coffee on the site, and that's what we should have brewed. But that's fine.
That's true.
What do we just drop?
Micro lot from Guatemala.
That's right.
San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. Isn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a relative of Jorge Mendes?
I don't know.
Maybe
it felt like that in the description,
yeah.
But then I was like, wait, no, I don't know. Shout out to Onyx who reached out to us and was like, hey, we have this special micro lot that was like part of the one-of-a-kind Guatemalan auction. Yeah. Literally, there's like 200 pounds of it, and that's it. Like, there's nothing else of it exists in the world. It was exciting because it was like, it's always nice to be able to buy out like a full lot and know like this is the only coffee of this coffee exists in the world. What do you think about the coffee? Give us some thoughts. We've been cupping it, drinking it, brewing it for like the last month, trying to find our way into it.
Yeah, like you said, we've been just trying different roast profiles on it and kind of getting it to the point where we're like, man, this brings out the coffee the most. And one of my favorite cuppings of the coffee was when both you and I tasted it, and we were not only finding flavor notes that you and I both experienced, but also flavor notes that we uniquely experienced. Whether we were like picking up vanilla or honey or different forms of sweetness. So to say this coffee is quite complex on that level. And especially depending on how you're going to brew it, I think different elements of the coffee shine. I know in the cupping, like I picked up just a lot of cherry. That was a big one, I believe. And then when you started picking up more of the floral side of it, then I started brewing on V60, and that's when I started tasting more of the floral side apart from just the cupping. And then that's where that whole sweetness, like I think you picked up vanilla, I picked up like honey. So like there was just like so much complexity in the coffee. But again, like not to simply say like all of those things were present. They were, but at different times, I would say. So I would say this coffee is extremely unique. And it's going to go great. Again, if I had a preferred brew method for this coffee, if you're into the V60 and you're still holding true to that conical brewer, this is a great coffee for that.
For sure.
It's just going to go excellent. When we brewed it at Apps, I think it was one of my favorite coffees, and it was standing next to Naturals. Yeah,
it's excellent. And I would say, like, for those of you who are planning to pick it up or thinking of picking it up, brewed on the V60 for sure.
Yeah.
When we dialed it in on V60, it was like, wow, there's something beautiful just hidden in here that when you get it like right on the spot, it's a great coffee. And honestly, like the complexity, like these are the coffees that get me excited. Honestly, I love the wild anaerobic naturals or carbonic maceration, thermal shocked, upside down shocked, whatever. Like I like those coffees, but coffees like this are just like so clean and sweet. And even cupping it today, I'm like, whoa, like this is just a beautiful cup of coffee. And I actually can't wait. I want to figure out how to brew it on espresso.
I was just gonna say that,
and just give it a shot, because I'm like literally and figuratively I feel like there could be a lot going on there. And totally. The crazy thing was like I was brewing it at 2, 3, 4 weeks, and the entire time there was something interesting going on. And every time I brewed it, I felt like one time it was marshmallows, one time it was like deep florals, orange, like just it's just very interesting. And like a couple days ago, you brewed like a very old roast of it, and the aromas were
excellent. It was like
unreal.
Honey. It was literally wildflower honey. It was great.
So there it is. It's live. Go check it out. Take a peek at it. Pick it up. It's gonna be a fun one, and there's not a whole lot of it left, so can't guarantee that it's gonna be there for a long time. So that's that. But yeah. Any thoughts on the coffee?
Get it while it lasts. It won't.
It,
There's not a
folks.
lot of it, and it's exclusive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't go over to Onyx and pick it up.
Yeah.
Or
or anywhere else.
Proud Mary, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, cool. Well, today we just wanted to talk about, honestly, just brainstorming some podcast ideas, and we kind of just were like, why not just like cover some really interesting coffee facts, fun facts, because who doesn't like fun facts on a podcast? Yeah, just some coffee facts that actually, I think one thing that I like about these, just reading over these coffee facts, is that it brings so much more perspective
Totally.
to the industry and the part of the industry that we're in. It's so easy to think that like everybody's drinking specialty coffee when you're once again in like an echo chamber, like, and you're looking for that like 1% like geisha anaerobic from this specific farm, which is all cool. Like I love that, and we're suckers for that. And I don't think, I mean, that's part of the craft.
Right.
But reading over these statistics, I'm like, oh, wait, like it's so crazy how niche it is. Like this whole coffee thing.
Yeah, totally. And that majority of the folks who drink coffee still drink coffee for kind of the basic, most common reasons, right? You need some caffeine.
Yeah.
It's become a morning tradition, and you know what I mean? It's just fuel for the day.
Yeah.
So like very basic. And that's why some of the things that we're going to look like, for some listeners, this may be shocking because you've never seen these statistics or facts. But some of you are also going to relate, because I remember before we went into, this rabbit hole of coffee, I remember my experiences with coffee, and they were simply that, like even our dad, like, just drinking basic instant coffee in the morning, like from that, or using a French press to brew coffee, or, a coffee pot. So I think these statistics and these facts are going to wrap up what majority of folks in the United States are experiencing when it comes to coffee.
Yeah.
So like you said, it brings a lot of perspective, but it also helps kind of step back, reassess, and reevaluate just the whole industry as a whole. Even like as us who own a roasting company, that's a big deal. But also as someone who is always, trying to either make my coffee tastes quote unquote better, you know what I mean? Or trying to find the most rarest coffees. This kind of information helps bring perspective to like my personal coffee journey as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
of course. And
so what do we got?
Yeah. We're going to start kind of like broad a little bit, but 64% of American adults currently consume coffee every day. So this is not like an occasional like drink. It's not like, you go party on the weekends and you have like, 10 cocktails. No, this is like an everyday thing, like every day, which to think about, like, I think the population of the United States is 320 million, which means 64%, 50% is 110. So I'm eyeballing maybe 130 million people, 140 million people.
Wait, you said how many?
No, 50% is about 110 million. In all of the United
times
States.
2 equals 220 million total
Oh,
population.
220. Sorry. No. No,
160.
100,
60.
Something like that. And then that's 50. So this is 64. So
a lot.
maybe 200 million.
Yeah.
Which, that's like a lot of coffee drinkers.
It's a lot. I mean, I when I hear that, my mind goes two ways. Like, man, what are those folks drinking?
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean?
Same.
That's a big. I'm
of course.
Yeah. Part of owning the business, you're always asking that question. But the other big one is, if you're not in the 64%, if you're in the 36%, right? Yeah, 36% of folks. What are you drinking in the morning? Are you just like drinking Gatorade, like water, like tea, like? Are you grabbing a beer on your way to work? Like what? Like hopefully not. Like like what are you drinking? That's kind of my big question, because when I like remember, like try to remember, like what did I drink in the morning? It was tea. Like I think that's also in a Russian tradition. Yeah. So we also got to consider the fact that America is pretty diverse when it comes to traditions and cultures. Yeah. So not everybody has the tradition of brewing a cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Especially for us Russians, like, man, those little Russian tea cakes or like the prяники,
Of course.
that's the Russian
Yeah.
word for
Just
it.
what
Like
you have for
with
breakfast.
a little
Yeah,
tea,
with a
you know what I
little
mean?
tea.
Like,
Yeah.
or if you're our dad, you're a slice of bagel with butter. I don't
Exactly.
know.
Let's
But
go.
tea is a big drink.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Other else than that, it makes sense. I would actually think the number should be higher.
Really? Yeah, I don't know. I for some reason that number comes to a surprise to me, but at the same time I'm like, wait a second. You think about it and you're like, no, that actually sounds about right.
Right.
That more than half the United States drinks coffee. And so my mind went to pretty much exactly where your mind went, was just like, what the heck are they drinking? 64%. What kind of coffee are you drinking? Dunkin',
Yeah.
Starbucks?
Exactly.
Which probably predominantly a lot of the people are probably drinking Dunkin', Starbucks, Panera Bread.
That's a big one.
Was huge with their free coffee, like coffee subscription that gets you unlimited coffee, which is just insane.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
I mean, for a while, the big one was McCafe when they launched, because they're fairly new to the game.
Yeah.
Like they're not as
Yeah.
old as Starbucks or Dunkin'.
Yeah,
but
and then Chick-fil-A as well.
Right, Chick-fil-A.
Which word on the street is? I heard that Chick-fil-A has pretty decent coffee.
yeah, and very well sourced coffee too.
And word on the street is that it actually might be quote unquote specialty grade, which is breaking my mind. I don't know where I've heard that. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't quote me on that, folks.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah, that's. I'm just wondering what they're drinking, and a statistics we found. I also don't really understand how they came up with these numbers, because they don't add up to 100%.
Yeah,
Which is weird. But they said that dark roast that people drink. 41% of the people that were asked drink dark roast, 51% drink medium roast, 15% drink light roast, and 11% were like, I don't even know what roast it is.
yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense. It doesn't have to add up to 100, because you may drink dark and medium roast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's more of a general statistic here. Yeah. But wait, did you say dark roast is still the most popular? Is that right? No, medium roast is.
Medium roast is at 51, and dark roast is at 41, which when I first read that, I was like, wait, there's more people drinking medium roast actually, which it's also hard to calibrate, because for example, like the other day I was at Starbucks.
Yeah.
There was a sign that said light roast pour over. I got it. I drink a light roast pour over at Starbucks.
Right.
Call me out.
Yeah.
But it was very far from the light roast. Sorry.
Right.
It was very far. So I don't know how to take that at face value, but it's still kind of intriguing that 51% of coffee drinkers in the States are drinking a medium roast.
Yeah.
And 41 drinking dark roast, which is huge. That's like, and I don't want to be like narcissistic or like narrow-minded that you have to drink coffee the way I do.
Right.
But that's exciting to think that the scales are tipping towards a medium roast. No?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that, like you already said, like my mind goes, what's the definition here? Like, how do we define, according to this statistic, like how do we define dark, medium, and light? Because we've all, even within specialty, like you make the circle even smaller, and then look within specialty coffee, like not all of us are on the same page when it comes to like dark, medium, or light. Because there's a range, you know what I mean? There's not a objective way to look at it. So within that, it makes sense that medium roast would be, at least for me, because medium is in the middle, and I think we're just creatures the way we're built. It's like if you don't want this, you don't want that, you choose what's in the middle. Like the classic tip option, you know what I mean? 15, 20, 25, 20 gets chosen the most all the time. So I think that also plays in the role. It's like right in the middle, therefore we tend to choose it. But also because like light roast and dark roast have two very polarizing flavor profiles. And most folks, once you had a light roast, you automatically say, oh, that's acidic. kind of predominantly,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm once again speaking on very broad terms.
Yeah.
And then when you have a dark roast, you may say, oh, that's too strong and bitter.
Yeah.
So those are like the
jarring.
common. Yeah. They're kind of extreme. So it makes sense that medium roast would be like the label you would look at that.
Which I could get down for a medium roast.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. This I've been challenged over the last 2 years with my preference, especially in roasting. It's like I actually can get down for a medium roast. Like it's not bad. I feel like a lot of light roasts are also too light almost sometimes.
Yeah.
That it takes away from the coffee. But once again, it is a big preference. But I will say medium roast is a perfect gateway drug to the light roast
Yeah.
part of the industry, the light roast fad, which is exciting. That has played a part in my coffee enlightenment journey, or whatever you want to call it, into really craft specialty coffee, which is awesome to see. That's where the majority of people are sitting in that medium roast.
Right.
Which, playing off of that, I'm going to do a couple of them because I think they're all connected. So 79% of Americans prepare coffee at home. Yeah. Which is crazy. That's huge. Yeah. 45% of coffee consumers brew their coffee by a drip coffee maker.
Yep.
And 35% of coffee consumers usually drink black coffee.
35.
Yeah.
Okay. About a little over a third.
Yeah.
Yeah. That all kind of sits right with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that I was surprised at, to be honest, is that 79% of people prepare coffee at home.
Right.
To me, I guess maybe because I work in the industry, and my first instinct is, I brew coffee a lot, like on my own. But my also big first instinct is also to go to a cafe, get something tasty, see what they're brewing on espresso. You have pour over, drip. You have all these options that you can enjoy. That's kind of where I gravitate to. And to think that like 80% of people, or 79%, are just drinking coffee at home predominantly, I think that's a pretty big, which is awesome, because brewing at home doesn't have to suck. And we actually did a whole podcast on that.
Right. I think like it reminds me of like our friend Kyle. He drinks a lot of coffee.
He does.
He subscribes monthly from us.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's a lot. But he also goes to cafes a lot.
Yeah.
So I think there's also that group of folks who are drinking a lot of coffee at home, and they're also visiting the cafe. But that's also, I think, part of our, like I was saying earlier, it's like our tradition culturally. It's kind of what you do. You wake up and you start the coffee pot. Like I think a lot of coffee pots or coffee brewers have those built-in timers now. And that was that was a very big fad. Like, your coffee brewer has to have a timer.
Yeah.
I remember using that. I had a classic Mr. Coffee. I can remember it's black. It has that little silver square on top. It was like kind of a mid-range. And I would grind my coffee the night before, throw in a filter, fill it up with water, start my timer. And if the electricity doesn't go out, I wake up to fresh coffee. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's so great. That's excellent. I think that's part of the cultural tradition of having coffee in the morning. Yeah. Therefore, it makes sense that before you can even get to a cafe, you have coffee. Yeah. But I think the other point of view that I'm also thinking is, for us as owners of a coffee company, that's a very good statistic. The statistic is basically the favor is in our, I don't know what word I was going to say, shoes, like the ball's are on our court, whatever. We're on offense here in the sense that folks still, even if they go to a cafe, most likely their first cup of coffee is going to be at home. We've seen all those like subscriptions pop up. I mean, the classic one I sent you a few weeks ago was the NPR with counterculture. That's big, especially because a specialty coffee roasting company on such a major channel like NPR, they cover not only news but a lot of media. To create a subscription for people to enjoy coffee at home, that's big. So the statistic makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's hard. I think, once again, like oftentimes I feel like my head's like in an echo chamber And I feel like, I don't know, everybody has like an amazing grinder at home, or
Right.
everybody's brewing a geisha. Like, I'm like, "Wait, you're not brewing a geisha? What are you doing?" dude?" But it's like when you take a step back, and this is why like I love these, I love going over these statistics, is because they just give me like a actual, like somewhat more of a realistic view of the world, the United States as a coffee consumer and coffee drinker, and that's become such a big part of our culture as a whole, which is awesome. And yeah, I'm also kind of like, I don't know how I feel about 35% of coffee consumers usually drink black coffee. It feels like, once again, I don't know, maybe
Should it be higher?
I feel like it should be higher,
Okay,
but
okay.
I also feel like it should be lower, because I'm like, wait. So most people actually don't think that drinking black coffee is bad.
No, yeah.
Even though I feel like a big question I get all the time is, wait, like you drink coffee black? Like that's kind of gross. Like, how do you do it? So it's like, I don't know, that statistic is like kind of just like intriguing to me, because I'm like, I've never actually really thought about it. And
Right.
most people, well, not most, it's a little less than half, are drinking their coffee black.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of cool, because, well, you're tasting coffee for what it is.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. But
Again, I think of two things. One, that's like me drinking Starbucks, Pike's Place, a tall Pike's Place just brew, and then our dad drinking instant coffee. And that instant coffee, almost 100% of the time, like majority of the time, I would say, whenever I had that instant coffee, I was putting sweetened condensed milk into it. But that's the whole, like, that was the beverage in itself. Should I even call it coffee? I don't know. Yeah, it has caffeine. It's coffee. But that's also the complications behind, one, the statistic, but also this concept is we call everything coffee. A light roast is coffee, a dark roast is coffee. They taste significantly different.
and instant is coffee.
Instant is coffee.
And flavored pods are coffee.
Keurig, green coffee is coffee. Roasted coffee is
insane.
coffee.
I forgot that
And then
exists.
at the end of the day, like, also coffee is a flavor. Like coffee flavored ice cream, coffee flavored, I don't know, toothpaste, like coffee flavored everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's also a flavor. So when it comes to significantly like defining what that means, it's hard. So therefore, when we affiliate our taste preference, I think coffee flavor in itself, that black coffee flavor, is also, in my mind, it's dark roast. Like when you say you want something coffee flavored, that would be it. I know when I was making baking stuff, like making muffins for the cafe that I was working, we would use the little instant espresso. And guess what? It was coffee flavored, but it didn't have any of those flavor notes that we're looking for in a light roast. It was just like rich flavor. So therefore, I think I would assume that majority of folks would actually drink coffee with cream, which that's why the statistic doesn't surprise me. I actually think it might be, in my mind, less folks would be drinking black coffee.
Less folks?
Yeah. Does that make sense? Like with everything that I've said earlier, it's because coffee is also viewed predominantly as a flavor.
Yeah.
So it's a base.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. True. I think that's one last one I want to wrap this up with, which I absolutely love this one. I said that about 29% of U.S. coffee consumers drink coffee to relax.
Dang, that's my favorite one right there. That's powerful.
Almost a third of Americans who drink coffee enjoy this beverage because it helps them unwind.
Okay.
That was beyond, actually. That shattered my mind. I didn't even know that there was enough to even make it a statistic.
Yeah.
I thought it was like only something I do. Like I'm like up here at the office at like 10 p.m. and I'll just right before going home. I won't even necessarily even drink all of it, but grind a little coffee.
Watch a brew.
Just brew, just pour, and it's like the most like calming, relaxing. Just like, I don't know, it's just like a beautiful routine. And I didn't know that 30% of U.S. coffee drinkers know exactly what that feels like.
Dude, that's a very cool statistic because, I mean, maybe I'm reaching too far with this one, but if you take the 70 whatever percent of folks who drink coffee at home, pair it with that statistic, would that mean that a lot of those folks are relaxing in the morning before they head out to work? Dude, if that's the case, then man, we need to do another set of data, because that will open up a whole different can of worms for us to digest and figure out. But that's an interesting statistic.
Unwinding before work.
To wind up and unwind after work.
Powerful.
Dude, powerful. I love it. But does that include decaf? Like, would you say like people are unwinding to decaf coffee or caffeinated coffee? Because coffee is a stimulant.
It's true.
You know?
Yeah, that's also like counter. I'm like, too relaxed. I'm like, interesting. How do you relax when your heart's like beating twice as fast? Like,
dude, I mean, I've been making some coffee cocktails, and that's also fun. That's fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, my tolerance for coffee is like fairly high. So like having a brew late at night doesn't necessarily kill me, but sometimes it just like hits differently and you regret your decision. But that being said, decaf could be an option as part of that 30% that people are drinking, which, little shameless plug, we have some decaf on the site.
Oh yeah.
But then we're also dropping another decaf in the near future that will be very tasty. It's
going to be super tasty.
It's going to be super exciting.
Pumped.
Yeah. Actually, that might be something that I put in a fellow container, bring it up here, save it for those 10 p.m., 11 p.m. brews here. So,
dude, awesome.
That's it, folks.
Yeah. I was just going to wrap it up and say, like, I like statistics like this. Just like you said, it brings perspective, but it also gives a lot of focus. Just as someone who works in the industry, but also just me drinking coffee at home, to a degree, kind of makes me feel like I'm a part of a bigger collective of folks, which is great. But also as a business, I'm like, man, the statistics are actually in our favor. Like, I'm glad that folks are drinking coffee at home. It is kind of hard when you live in a community where there's so many cafes. It's great, but it's also sometimes you kind of lose focus that not everybody goes to a cafe, and that's great. That's actually awesome.
Which, there's a lot to unpack there actually that I think we could do like a whole episode on.
Right.
Because that has a lot to do with whether you're a barista, how you treat your guests coming in, knowing more about them helps you better serve them.
Right. Yeah.
And stuff like this gives a lot of context to the guests that are coming in, which should change how you're communicating with them, how you're talking to them, what you're offering them.
Right.
But then also it changes also the cafe approach. Does that mean that actually this is like that cafes have a lot more room to grow? Yeah,
that's very true too.
You know?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of information just from there. But it's for another time.
Awesome.
Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys have a spectacular weekend. Don't forget to check out the new Guatemala micro lot that was dropped today. And that's it. Hopefully you learned some fun facts, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.